What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this edition of American Made Boating. My name is Chris Albert, and I am your host. And I'm also the Director of Marketing and Sales for Fortress Anchors. And it's my pleasure each week to bring you the people and the personalities that make up the American boating industry. This week, we have a really awesome guest, and I'm going to start this off by telling you a little bit about myself. I grew up in New England, and one of the things I remember about growing up in New England was dealing with the winters, the cold weather. And it's not just cold as in you're uncomfortable. It's cold as in you're walking outside, your face is numb, and the wind, when it comes, it goes right through you. And when I was dealing with that, I would often think what life must have been like for those early settlers who crossed an ocean to come here and start a new life in the new world. When they looked out on the horizon and they saw that haze and they felt that bitter cold and they wondered what life was going to be like for them in the future. And one of those cold, desolate places that they settled was a place called Gloucester, Massachusetts. It was settled in 1623 by the Dorchester Company. And at the time, the people landed there. The land wasn't good for farming. And there wasn't a lot of fishing going on at the time. It definitely wasn't the industry that it is today. And the settlement floundered at first, but eventually people came back. And by the 1640s, Gloucester was a thriving fishing town. And it was the first seaport here in the New World. And over the next few centuries, Gloucester became known for producing some of the best fishermen in the world. And of course, some of the best sea stories ever created. You've probably heard of Gloucester from the movie The Perfect Storm. And you might have also heard of it from the show Wicked Tuna. And today, my guest is one of the people that make up the awesome personalities that are on National Geographic's Wicked Tuna. His name is Dave Marciano. He's a fisherman who goes out and hunts some of the fish that we eat every week along with our families. And he's a great guy. I've gotten to know him over the past few weeks. He contacted us at first because he wanted to put a Fortress anchor on his boat, hard merchandise. And what struck me about him is that he's such a down-to-earth individual. He's a real working man. And he's just like you see him on the TV. Very humble, very, very cool individual. And you're going to get that from this episode. In this conversation, we talk about how Dave got his start. We talk about some of the many valuable lessons that he's learned from fishing. We talk about some of the advice he has for those of you who are just getting out on the water. And of course, we talk about the show, Wicked Tuna. You guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. Like I said, Dave's a great guy, and he's also a really colorful personality. You should definitely check out his Instagram. It's one of the most hilarious Instagram pages out there. And let's get into this awesome conversation with Mr. Dave Marciano, one of the stars of National Geographic's Wicked Tuna.
Welcome to American Made Boating, brought to you by Fortress Marine Anchors. Each week, we're bringing you the best boating knowledge, insights, and stories from some of the most amazing people in the American boating industry. Set your anchor, turn up your speakers, and get ready for an awesome show.
Dave Marciano, welcome to American Made Boating. How you doing today?
Great thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing outstanding. It's always a good day down here in Florida. You're up in Gloucester right now, right?
Yes, sir. Gloucester, Mass.
Oh man, I've been a fan of your show for a while now, and then we came in contact a few weeks ago. But I was reading a little bit up on you. How'd you get into fishing in the first place? What got you to become a tuna fisherman?
Well, it's funny. Nobody in my family fished before me, right? which is unique in Gloucester. You know, a lot of Gloucester's heritage is fishermen. You know, their fathers were fishermen, their father before them, that type of thing. Gloucester has, you know, a 400-year history of commercial fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what's great about Gloucester is even a guy like me, I just had a passion for fishing when I was a kid. You know, and it started out fishing with a bobber and a minnow, you know, like all of us start at the local ponds. And then, you know, I just couldn't get enough. I kept building more into that passion for fishing. You know, and I worked on in my high school years, I worked on charter boats and party boats. You know, and then after the high school years, you know, I got married and you know, we started to have some kids. So I started to get into the commercial end of the commercial fisheries. And that's really what led me to tuna fishing, because here in New England, these tunas are worth money, and they're one of the species. As a commercial fisherman, we're opportunists, right? When different seasons, we have different species that show up in abundance, and we make our living catching those species, right? And so tuna was always part of my yearly income.
Nice. And do you go after other species too? Are you going after cod or anything like that?
Yes, we do. I have a long history of that. Now, unfortunately, the commercial fishing industry has changed a bit over the years. And, you know, charters was always a small part. The for-hire industry was what I did with my boat. Now, obviously, because of my participation on the show, that part of my business has really taken off. For all the boats that are on the show, right? Let's face it, if you're a charter boat and you manage to get yourself on a TV show, you know, that's great advertisement for your business, right? We're very fortunate. And I focused more nowadays on the for-hire end of the fisheries for the simple reason that's where the opportunity is, because of, you know, the fortunate opportunity we've had being a part of the show.
Awesome. And so you said you got into it, you know, you just started helping out on charter boats. You started helping out in commercial fishing boats. When did you decide that you were going to get your own boat and become a captain?
I think I probably decided that really early. I mean, I had my first job on deck, you know, of those boats when I was 12 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it all started because I was a kid who was there every weekend on those party boats. And then one weekend, the mates didn't show up. And, you know, the owner recognized me for being there all the time. He said, "Hey, kid, you want to work?" And, you know, I never looked back once I had that first job. And, you know, it took time. I did it, you know, the old-fashioned way. I worked on deck for years, both commercial and charter boats. You know, eventually I ran other boats as captains for a period of time, you know, 5 or 6 years. And eventually I got that money, enough money saved to eventually buy my own boat.
Wow. And how long were you doing this before the TV show came knocking?
Oh, 30 plus years.
Oh, wow.
30
wow.
years. Yeah. You know, look, the show's been around. Like, we just wrapped up filming season 10, which is amazing in itself because, you know, look, it's not in a million years, not even in the barroom talk with the boys, right? If people said, "Where do you see yourself doing in the future?" right? You know, doing something like this was never even on the fairy tale list. So we're very fortunate to have that. So prior to that, though, I had fished, you know, again, between everything. Fishing was my first job when I had a kid, and I had been fishing the whole 30 years prior to the show.
Wow. And so they just called you up and they were like, "We're putting this show together. It's going to be about tuna fishermen. You know, are you interested in doing it?" Or
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a great question. Look, when it all started, I've been asked this before. The executive producers did some work on that movie, Perfect Storm.
Yep.
So they became familiar with Gloucester as a very scenic location. That's how people in the filming things, look at places. And it's very scenic up here. They heard about us catching these fish that were worth money. When I say they, I'm talking Pilgrim Productions based in LA there. That's a production company that produces the show. And that's all they do is produce reality shows. If you look them up, they've produced hundreds of different types of reality shows. Mm-hmm. So the idea for the show was born based on that. Now, I had no idea any of it was going on. They came to Gloucester for 10 days. They were interviewing other boats and captains. On the 9th day, they contacted me and they gave me the rundown. They said, hey, we got an idea for a show. We've been interviewing other boats and captains. We've been going out, getting some B-roll footage of these fish being caught. They said, one thing we noticed was your name came up a lot on these other boats. Mm. They said, in our business, the TV business, if people talk about you, you may be somebody we want to interview to be a part of this, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I make no claims to be the biggest or the baddest, but as a commercial fisherman, I've been in the industry a long time. I've had some really fantastic years and I've had some really disastrous years, right? But I've played the game for a long time. Look, the first words out of my mouth is there a check involved? I'm a commercial fisherman. Yep. They want to come on the boat. They said, yeah, we'll give you $400 to come down and do a 45-minute video interview and tell us your story. All right? Look, in my business, some weeks $400 is a week's pay, right? So I said, I'll be down first thing in the morning.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
$400. I never thought it would get to where it was today.
Wow. So, and what did they do? Did they do like a pilot first and then,
Yeah, well, during that time they were here, they shoot a sizzle reel. And, see, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I had no idea of this stuff. It's only through participation that I've kept my eyes open, right?
Yeah.
So while they were here during that 10 days, they create a sizzle reel, which is footage of the fish being caught, and then some of the people they might highlight on the show, right? Mm-hmm. And they shop that sizzle reel around to the networks.
Gotcha.
Because ultimately it's the networks that are going to purchase the rights to the show and put up the show, put up the money for a show like this to be produced, right? That's how the system works. Like, I had no idea of this. So from that sizzle reel, now this is where it goes to rumor. I don't know this for a fact, but from what I've heard was, there was quite a bidding war between Discovery Channel and National Geographic Channel for the rights to the show, which is important because I think depending on which network ultimately purchased the concept for the show, once they put up the money, then they have a show they have a say on exactly what the show will look like. And I think, if Discovery Channel ultimately picked up the show, it might look a little different than, the show that we have with National Geographic. Because now let's face it, I was surprised when I heard National Geographic was going to air this show that we were talking about. I think at the time, the name was even different. At the time, the concept name was Blue Gold, right? And all I could think is that reminds me of one of those foot powder commercials, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, that developed. The name was always a concept, and we were always looking for a new name, right? So, because we all know National Geographic we grew up with, right? I'm sure, a lot of your viewers are like me, right? And, National Geographic was in the schools and the libraries, and we had it delivered to the house. And, I thought, I was just so surprised that Nat Geo was going to air a show about, actually killing fish as opposed to, showing them swimming free in their natural environment, right? So I think that has a big impact on, a lot of the things you see on our show.
Right.
Like, for instance, the gutting and process of the fish. You don't see much of that on the show if you watch, right? And that's what things viewers email me a lot and go, why don't we see more of that? Well, I think because it's National Geographic, we film all that, but it doesn't make it in, because it's National Geographic. I think they tend to, cut down on the gore.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they always have that scene where, they cut a piece of the collar off, they check the fat, and then they do a core check to make sure there's no burn. I was looking up tuna burn, right? I didn't realize that those fish, they go into like a rhabdomyolysis where the muscle tissue starts to get damaged if they're stressed out. So there's a real skill in being able to bring it up and then getting it cold enough so that the tissue doesn't get damaged, right?
Right. Now, like, I'm impressed. You know all the technical shit. Right? I'm just a commercial fisherman. For me, I view it very simple, right? How do I get more money for my fish than the guy beside me, right?
Right.
So we learned over time, and again, like, I don't know all the technical terms, but I know if I bring in a burned fish, I get paid less, right?
Right.
So, and again, like, that's the thing you don't see. The first step to, cooling a fish properly is really swimming a fish. So once you've got it tail strapped and now you've caught the fish, the first thing we do is we spin it around. We got a big hook that we get up under his lower lip, right? And we start to swim him and start to cool him like he was going to be released if we were tag and release fishing, right?
Right.
We revive him. And then basically we bleed him. We bleed him to death because while the fish, once he gets cooled down a little, the gills are cooling the fish and the heart's pumping the blood out. So it's a very important step. But again, on National Geographic, I don't really think they're going to, show that step for the simple reason, it's a not very kind thing. But, again, my perspective as a fisherman is, we've killed this creature now, and it's a beautiful creature. It's pretty impressive even after all these years. I mean, I'm a fisherman. I don't mind killing fish, but I have a lot of respect when I see a fish like that we've harvested. So I think it's my duty as a fisherman to respect that fish by, absolutely bringing in the best quality product we possibly can.
Right. And making sure that fish is getting consumed and everything, right?
You won't see all that detail.
Right. And to mention that, you also do a lot of work for conservation, right? And conserving the oceans and making sure that the resources you're working are preserved for future generations, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Throughout my career, I've been very active in fisheries management, even in the commercial end of the fisheries, with gill netting for cod, haddock, and pollock up here in New England. And I think when I think about it, that's probably why when they were on other boats, guys were talking about me. Oftentimes, that would be the conversation when my name brought up because, we had fisheries regulations that would impact us as businessmen. And, some guys were intimidated by that process. And I'll admit I was myself. Let's face it, I got a high school diploma, and we would have to go to sit in these hearings and subcommittees and, meetings where scientists are talking about regulating fisheries. Right. So it would be hard for a guy like me to keep up in that type of discussion. But, I realized if I wanted to stay in business, look, the federal government is turning this wheel. And we're not going to stop fisheries regulation. So the best thing you can do is learn to roll with the wheel and learn how to participate within the process, or you're just going to get rolled over by it.
Right.
But I'll admit it was quite the learning curve and very intimidating throughout that process. But look, it's self-preservation. Oftentimes commercial fishermen get a black eye for being, short-sighted and only interested in, short-term profit. But the truth is something quite different, not only for myself, but the very vast majority of all the commercial fishermen I know, regardless of what coast we're talking about, there's no profit tomorrow if we catch all the fish today. It's
Right.
Self-preservation to ensure we have a fully sustainable resource, regardless of what types of species we're talking about, or regardless of methods of harvest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned that your name had come up a lot on the boats and on the show, it is a competition, but you guys also work together quite a bit. Did you guys all know each other prior to the show and were you working together for long periods of time?
Actually, no. Right? Look, let's face it. A lot of those boats they have on the show, they tied up over the Cape Ann Marina, right? That's the fancy marina in town. And, I'm a commercial fisherman. Those guys spend a month in dockage when it used to cost me for a year to tie up my boat, right? I don't need fancy. I don't need a bar and a hot shower when we get in. Me and the boys just need to get to the boat, get on the boat, and go out fishing, right? And the more I spend on dockage, it's just less money we can bring home, right?
Right.
So nothing against those guys, but they were always kind of, that's those guys over there. And the guys I really worked with the past 30 years, I could probably count on two hands, right? Mm-hmm. And they were commercial fishermen like me, because we would work together, as a working group. Nothing against those other guys, but, we worked together with guys who were like us. Mm-hmm. Right? We took care of our own type of thing. But let's face it, we would watch boats like Dave on the .com. For decades, that boat has been a top producing captain and boat in the fleet. So even as a commercial fisherman, even though I didn't talk to Dave, we'd keep an eye on guys like that, just like any fisherman out there, right? Somebody's always keeping an eye on the guys who are actually catching fish. But we never really spoke till they kind of stuck us in this fishbowl together that is Wicked Tuna.
Yeah. And what are your relationships like with them now? Like, I know there's the on-camera relationship.
We all get along. Yeah. Obviously for the show, right? They key in on any drama that might happen. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, we're not actors. They take that very seriously. Nothing's scripted, because the audience would see right through that. I'm not an actor, right?
Right.
But these fish are worth money. So tempers flare, arguments happen. Now, in TV world, they accentuate all that drama. I mean, let's face it, when you drive to work in the morning, if somebody cuts you off, you give them a finger, and that's the end of it, right? It doesn't ruin your day. Yep. But in our world, if somebody cuts us off on the other boat, we give them the finger, and then the cameraman points to you and goes, "So why are you so upset with Captain Dave?" Right? It's just how it works, doing what we do with them. Gotcha. But the truth is, we all get along fairly well. Some guys better than others. And, it's funny because as far as the fan base, if you watch the show, they kind of play me and Dave on the .com as being like arch enemies, right? Mm-hmm. The truth is, him and I have become very close friends over the years working together on the show. He's one of the guys I truly do like.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what about your relationships with the cameramen? Because those guys they're living with you, right?
Yeah, well, look, they're professionals. Mm-hmm. And they become part of the team. Now, while we're filming, we probably have the same guy for the whole season of filming. And sometimes it translates into season after season. But remember, those cameraman operators are all independent contractors. They go from show to show to show. They're not beholden to any network or any production company. So they're looking to fill their year with contracts, right?
Right.
So that's how they work. So sometimes, one contract they might be on, before our show starts filming, might not end in time for them to come back. But while they're here, while they're on the boats, we have the same cameraman for, 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks on the boat. They certainly become part of the team.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome. And, one thing about you too, is your kids are involved in the business, right? So you got your son out there, your daughter out there. How's that been? And do they see futures in the fishing industry as well?
Well, look, my son, definitely, right? And my nephew, Jay, who's been there from the beginning. The boys will definitely take off into fishing. But let's face it, my daughter, my wife and I, neither one of us graduated from college, right? Mm-hmm. And my oldest daughter, Angelica, is older than my son, Joe. She's actually the oldest. And, she was the first one. She graduated college, right? And when she graduated college, she graduated magna cum laude, right? Nice. Now, I didn't even know what that meant, okay? I asked somebody what that meant. I didn't know what it meant. So, of course, we're very proud of her. And, her ultimate future, I'm sure, won't be in the fishing industry, but she's demonstrated, in order to help the family, she'll step up when needed. And let's face it, because of the TV deal, that's what the TV opportunity has meant for our whole family, right?
Right.
Opportunity of a lifetime. For the deal I got for the kids, look at both kids, Joe and Angelica, have graduated college, and they use that extra money from the TV show to pay off their student loans. They're debt-free. And now, they both have regular jobs and do other things, right, in between fishing on the boat. But now they can use that little hunk of money they get, right? Because let's face it, we get paid to participate. It's no secret. Mm-hmm. But to see my kids, and I told them it's opportunity I never had with their age, right? I said, look, if you can resist the urge to, blow this, because at the end of filming, all of a sudden when the contractors met, boom, at the end of the season, we wind up with a check. And it's not millions, but it's a great opportunity for working people like us. Mm-hmm. And, my kids get it. Now for the past couple of years, after paying off their student loans, which is a great thing, now they're using that money to plan for their retirement. Which, again, if they're smart, too, and they don't blow it on a new pickup truck or whatever, if they take this money and put it away, by the time they're my age, they're going to be very wealthy.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right? And, they get it because, as a commercial fisherman, I was, I guess, you could say successful, right? Mm-hmm. But, we had a modest living. We have a modest home. The kids always had clothes for school. You know what I mean? And even though in the family life, sometimes I never knew how I was going to make it through another year. That's the nature of commercial fishing, but somehow we always did. And I've said it in other interviews, we never had everything we wanted, but somehow, we had everything we needed. And that's what commercial fishing meant to our family. What it's meant for me, I told you the kids, that it's been great for them. Look, I finally started retirement planning for myself and my wife 4 years ago. That's what I'm doing with my TV money, right? As a commercial fisherman, and you can ask any one of them, traditionally, commercial fishermen don't retire. You pretty much work till you drop dead.
Yeah.
So if I could spin this into a little bit of, retirement, that we, all of a sudden, now we're kind of like the rest of the world. I see it, right? I've said it in other interviews. For us, it meant like for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm getting a little bit ahead in the rat race. I have a retirement portfolio. That's a dream I never dared to dream.
Right.
Right? And again, it's now when I say retirement, I get it. I'm not Brad Pitt. It's not going to be a mansion in LA, right? And let's face it, right? It's very.
You don't want to move to LA, trust me.
My wife's a stay-at-home mom, and to know, I'm planning it. And let's face it, I smoke like a fiend, right? I've been trying to quit, but I haven't been successful. If I can set it up knowing that, she could stay in the house that she brought her children up in long after I'm gone, right? To me, that's a successful life, right? Knowing she'll be all right there, because to her, something like that would be so important, just to stay in that home where she brought up her children, right? Yeah. And that's what it's meant for our life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm glad that those opportunities have been brought to you. I got a couple more questions just before we hop off. Really easy ones. First, what's your favorite fish to eat, and how do you like it prepared?
It's tough to pick a favorite now, because as a commercial fisherman, my favorite fish is always, especially in New England, seasons change and the fish change with the seasons, right? Different fish it becomes haddock season, it becomes striper season, it becomes tuna season, etc. Right? But I would, if pinned down to it, I would have to go with a good old fashioned, New England favorite, the haddock, right? Gulf of Maine haddock. It's nice. A deep water, cold water fish. It's not very exciting to catch, right? There's not much sport in it, right?
Yeah.
But it's what we have here in New England, and it is one of my favorites. And look, the recipe is very simple. Bake it. Just my grandmother, who is the one who taught me how to fillet a fish, because my father didn't know nothing, right? Or none of my uncles knew how to fish. It was my grandmother off the boat from Italy who actually showed me how to clean fish. And then, so when I would catch one, my parents would send me over to grandma's house to go clean it, and then I learned how to cook it. Recipe is very simple. You take your fillets, and it works with any whitefish fillet. Any type of fillets, you could use this. Lay the fillets in your baking pan. I like grated cheese. I like a lot of it, so put some grated cheese on there. Rich crackers. Salt and pepper to taste. If you want, maybe a little bit of fresh garlic mixed in there.
Yeah.
Put a couple squares of butter on top of that, and bake it at 350 in the oven, until it's thoroughly cooked. If you've got 10 pounds of fillets crammed in the pan, it's going to take a lot longer than, if you just got 1 or 2 fillets. But that's still my favorite way to cook it, the way my grandma taught me. And what's nice is that can also be, you can make that little packet in foil and throw it on the grill and stuff too.
That's awesome. You get me hungry. And, the final thing is this, you talk about retirement. Once this is through, where do you see yourself going? Where do you see yourself in retirement? Let's say you quit smoking, you're going to live another 40, 50 years. Where do you see yourself?
Well, look, what's cool is because of the show, through some of the companies we work with, Accurate Reels and Seeker Rods, right? And Gray's Taxidermy down there in Florida, right? We get invited to fish all over the world.
That's awesome.
So, again, literally we fished in Italy for the tunas over there. Because of the show, I was invited over to show up in Rome, Italy for a tournament over there, the Big Red tournament. And that opportunity came about because of the show, and they flew me and my wife over, and, just to sit there and shake hands and be a part of the tournament, right? We've been to Australia with the winch company that hauls the anchors that's on my boat. So hopefully there's more traveling in the future, because, look, prior to the show, I didn't even have a passport. I didn't think I was where. It wasn't until the network flew me to Croatia was the first time I ever traveled out of the country, because they wanted me to shoot a commercial for the European market.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
The network people had to pull their strings, to get me a passport really fast, because I never got one in my life. I didn't think I'd ever be going anywhere.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Dave, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Sure.
I want to acknowledge you. I think you're doing awesome out there. You're an inspiration to a lot of people, an inspiration to the working man out there. And, it's really great having you on the show today. Anything you want to end with?
No, I think we covered everything. And, of course, we've enjoyed working with the anchors, Fortress Anchors. That's been a definite plus for us and a big help. And, we look forward to working together in the future.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Dave. We enjoy working with you as well. And, good luck out there. I know you just wrapped up the season. Good luck out there with the rest of everything. And we'll be in touch soon. And to everybody out there.
Yeah, season 10 is in the bag. It's going to be the biggest, the fistiest, the funnest season yet.
That's awesome. Awesome. And everybody out there, make sure you catch Wicked Tuna on the Nat Geo channel. And we'll be back at you next week with some more awesome content. This is Chris Albert and Dave Marciano, and we are out. Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. That is our interview with Mr. Dave Marciano from National Geographic's Wicked Tuna. Hope you got a lot out of that show, and I hope you enjoyed it. We've got some great shows coming up for you. We've got Mr. Ken Clinton, president of Intrepid Powerboats, coming up real soon. We've also got Captain Jack Carlson from Two Conchs Charters out in Marathon, Florida. He's got an outstanding YouTube channel, an outstanding Instagram account that's hugely popular, and he is just taking over the game over there in the Florida Keys. We are going to be doing this each week, and if you guys know of a guest we should be bringing on, if there's a company you think we should be highlighting, please reach out to me. You can hit us up at info@fortressanchors.com. Always happy to take suggestions. And with that, I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Get out there on the water, have a great time, enjoy this time while you can. Lord knows that over the past year, we've learned that nothing is permanent. So definitely get out there, take this time, enjoy your families, and have a lot of fun. This is Chris Albert with American Made Boating, and I'll be talking to you next week.